It has been over a year since the war broke out in Ukraine. Towns have been destructed, thousands have been killed, and the war still continues. While everyone thought Ukraine would collapse, it has been holding its ground and launching offensives. Because the country is not alone. Support has been pouring in from around the world. Kiev has received billions of dollars in aid. But just how much exactly? Let me tell you. It's more than you can imagine. A report by the Kiel Institute for the World Economy has made some interesting revelations. And the US leads the chart. It has promised around $80 billion in aid to Ukraine. Last week, during a surprise visit to Kiev, President Joe Biden committed nearly $500 million more. The total figure now stands close to $130 billion. EU institutions are next in line. They have pledged over $37 billion. And then comes the UK with $8.8 billion. All other donor countries, including Germany, Canada, Poland, France, and the Netherlands, have provided around $16.5 million. Let's just look at what these amounts cover exactly. Governments are offering support in three forms. Number one being military aid. It pays for drones, tanks, missiles, and other munition systems. It also funds training, logistics, and intelligence support. The US has committed some $46.6 billion in military support. Far more money than any other country is donating. The UK comes second with $5.1 billion. The EU follows with $3.3 billion. You see, most of the money is pledged to Ukraine in the form of military aid. It arms the soldiers. It is keeping the war going. Number two is financial aid. It's all about the economy. It keeps Ukraine's government operating. It pays the civil servants, the healthcare workers, the educators. The EU has promised over $32 billion in financial aid to Ukraine. The US has pledged $26.7 billion. The UK has offered over $3 billion. Number three is humanitarian aid, and this includes food assistance, safe drinking water, medical supplies, and other necessities. It is for Ukrainians displaced by the conflict. The US has promised close to $4 billion. The EU has pledged $1.6 billion. You see, money is pouring into the war from all over the world. And America is leading the way. But do you know what happens when so much money is spent so quickly? When there is little to no oversight? Well, it leads to fraud, waste, and abuse. And there is a high chance that the dollars fall into corrupt pockets. And it has happened in Ukraine. Scores of political leaders and officials have been sacked. On Sunday, President Volodymyr Zelensky fired Eduard Moskalev. He was the commander of Ukraine's joint forces. In January, remember, Ukraine went on a purge. We told you about this. Officials were sacked on grounds of corruption. There was Vyacheslav Shapolov, the deputy defense minister of the country. Oleksiy Simonenko, the deputy prosecutor general of Ukraine. Vasyl Lozinsky, the deputy infrastructure minister. Vyacheslav Negoda and Ivan Lokeria, the deputy ministers for development of communities. And these, by the way, are only a few of the names. Several more were dismissed from their positions. Ukraine is also set to transfer the defense minister, Oleksiy Reznikov. Why is that? In response to the corruption scandals that have gripped the country. Zelensky has been trying hard to root out corruption, but just how feasible is that amid a war? Russian troops are attacking Ukraine from outside, and its own officials are eating it up from inside. The West is showering aid on Ukraine, but it's also concerned over the misuse of this aid. Once US equipment is handed to the Ukrainian government, American officials have little knowledge of where it goes. They rely on the Ukrainian government for such information. And as I told you, the government is full of corrupt officials. So of what use is it? Who exactly receives the aid? Is it being diverted to the wrong hands? Is it being stolen by terrorists? We can only guess. Have a look at this report by Russian state-owned news agency. It says the US weapons are ending up in hands of Swedish gangs. Swedish media is saying the same, by the way. Swedish arms smugglers have received requests to procure weapons from Ukraine. And why is that? For further sale to criminal gangs in the country. The Russian political leaders have warned for months. They say that weapons sent to Ukraine are very likely to end up in the black market. They could reach the hands of organized criminals in Europe and beyond. So I ask you again, of what use is this aid if it is going to end up in the wrong hands, in the wrong places? And what is the West doing about this? It is sending out weapons like anything. Should it not be overseeing how they are used? WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.